Hi, I'm Sophronia Scott, Director of the Elma College MFA in Creative Writing for the 21st Century, and welcome to another Faculty Friday. This is your opportunity to get to know something about the awesome faculty that we have teaching in our program. And today I have with me Matthew Gavin Frank. So Matt is the author of several fabulous nonfiction books, including The Mad Feast, an ecstatic tour through America's food, Preparing the Ghost, an essay concerning the giant squid and its first photographer, and the forthcoming book, Flight of the Diamond Smugglers, which is about, among other things, the ways in which carrier pigeons are used by diamond smuggling rings. And that's coming out in February, and I'm really excited about that. But thank you for joining us today, Matthew.
Thanks, Sophronia. It's good to be here.
So my question for you today, I asked this question because several of the students who will be considering our MFA program, it's a big decision-making process. And part of that process is thinking about, well, what can an MFA do for me? Is it worth the time, money, and the effort? And so I wanted to talk to you about what earning your MFA meant for you.
Yeah, so my occupational background, especially that particular like pre-MFA program phase of my life, I spent most of my work life in restaurant kitchens up until that point. I had my first restaurant job when I was 11 years old. I was washing dishes in a fast food chicken shack on the outskirts of Chicago. And I just kind of stayed in restaurants in one capacity or another for like the next 17 years or so. I would oftentimes, I spent most of my life in the kitchens, but every so often when I wanted to make a little bit more money, I went to the front of the house and started waiting tables. But it turned me into a real misanthrope. I felt like, and I innately love people, I think, and I'm curious about people, but I think sometimes like being a customer in a restaurant brought out the worst in folks. It just kind of like, it just kind of like called up almost some archaic version of entitlement. I feel, and they felt like they had the permission to abuse servers and things like this, and so it turned me into a people hater, and I hated feeling that way. So I would have to retreat back into the restaurant kitchens where I was away from the public for a while and just working with kind of this renegade ragtag bunch of I don't know, starving artists and ex-cons who just kind of like found a community in the restaurant kitchen. And I really appreciated that energy too. So eventually I worked my way up to like the fine dining restaurant kitchen world. That was often like very demanding. I would usually work 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 19-hour shifts. On your feet. It was incredibly militaristic at that level. I learned a lot. Just kind of this dedication almost to artistic excellence that permeated the fine dining restaurant kitchen was electric, sometimes oppressively so, but it was really interesting. And so after working a 19-hour shift, and then having to just get a few hours sleep and then start the next day, it was tough to like decompress after that long work day. And so the kitchen staff and I would oftentimes go out and have a few drinks for like an hour at a bar. And every so often the conversation tipped toward what we liked to do when we weren't actually working in the fine dining restaurant kitchen. You know, what else did we have in our lives? Did we have families? Did we have hobbies beyond cooking? Did we have time for such things? And so I confessed to them that, well, I like writing poems and kind of like lyrical essays, pieces of prose. What they didn't know is that, you know, I always loved writing. Ever since I was a kid, my mom was a 7th and 8th grade English teacher in Chicago. And she read to me from a very early age, and eventually I just started like writing to try and see if I could. I always loved books, but so I said this to them, oh, I like writing poems. And Sophronia, it was a fabulous conversation killer. um, they looked at me like, oh, I feel as if like they even like took a step back and then just started awkwardly sipping their drink a little bit faster, to give them something to do with their mouths beyond speaking to me after that. You know? And so I was like, well, is there a community out there for me that would actually like not do that if I said something like, I like writing poems and lyrical pieces of nonfiction? And so I didn't think something like that even existed. And just through some serpentine path, I discovered that the construct of the MFA program was something of our world. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that something like that was available to somebody like me. And where it's just like this tight, safe, just kind of creative incubator, so to speak, where a bunch of like-minded folks from diverse backgrounds could get together and talk about their own writing. That sounded like heaven to me. And so I just couldn't believe it was real. And so I started applying to these programs and got into a few and went to one. And it completely changed my life, not only in that it allowed me to see that such communities exist, and such supportive communities exist, into which I can immerse myself and just intensely make work, and then have a bunch of folks with whom to chat about said work. And then I get to read their work too and talk about that in constructive, supportive ways, because the ultimate goal is we all want people to make things, to make important art that could communicate with an audience, art that could potentially change the world, can make the world a better place, can generate empathy, and so on. And just that this construct exists in this kind of like tight, intense, holy space, just absolutely changed my life. I never expected to get a job teaching when I sought that out. I fully expected to go right back into restaurant kitchens after I left the MFA program. I just wanted to be in this community because I wanted to do it. I just wanted that for the 3 years that I was there to make this work. I wasn't thinking about jobs afterwards. And so right after the MFA program, that's what I did. I went back into restaurant kitchens for like 1.5 years. And then I started applying for teaching gigs and never expecting to get one. And as, forgive the phrasing, but my wife has this phrase that she says to me every so often. And she's like, man, I feel like you fell with your ass into the butter. And I did. I feel like this was all accidental. Like I found a teaching job. I get to do this occupationally, you know, as my life's work. And I cannot believe how fortunate I am to have found that, but I never expected it. I feel like I sort of backed into that, but without the MFA program, too, of course, I never would have fallen with my ass into that butter. and that's something to do. That's something to do.
How did you make that thought process then to, like you said, you went back to the kitchen. So how did you decide to apply for the teaching jobs?
So I of course maintained a relationship with my cohort. And so I mean, these were like wonderful friends of mine, and I mean, some of my best friends. now. Like I finished my MFA program in 2006. We still talk to each other now. We're like FaceTiming with each other once a week and things, and we have FaceTime dinners. And but I had like my cohort harping on me, in essence, saying like, are you not like looking for work? Like we're out there like putting out these applications. Here's like the AWP job list, and sending me links to things. So I was just like, oh yeah, cool. I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring and see what happens. Again, never fully expecting to get a job. And in fact, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, Sophronia, like my wife and I were planning on starting a gourmet grilled cheese food truck. And this was before everybody was doing gourmet grilled cheese. And so we had a friend who was an artisanal bread baker in Vermont who was going to do all the bread for us. We were going to buy this old mail truck. And yeah, like converted it to we had everything lined up. We had the menu planned, 11 grilled cheeses. Like 7 staples, and then 4 that would rotate with the seasons, like with seasonal ingredients. One of the flagship grilled cheeses was classic brie, fig, arugula.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that's what we were gonna do. And then I was like, well, I'll throw my hat into the ring and see if I get any offers. And then I ended up getting a teaching job initially at a community college in upstate New York. Did that for a year. Then found a visiting assistant professorship at Grand Valley State University, which, and I left what was essentially a tenure track job at the community college because the visiting assistant professorship, even though it was only a 3-year gig, offered me the opportunity to teach more creative courses, which is what I wanted to do. And so did that. And then after that, started applying for jobs again, and ended up getting a tenure track job at Northern Michigan University, and have been here for, goodness, about 10 years now. So.
Goodness. So thank you for sharing that, Matthew, because that really is a change, like totally changed your life.
Yeah.
So, but I also like how you went into it with no expectations, that you opened yourself to the creative experience, and then come what may, and these things did come your way. So I think that's a wonderful example for our prospective students.
Yeah, it felt entirely incidental, like in a way. Like, I mean, what I needed was that space to stretch out, into which to stretch out and write, and just make things and be around other writers. And that's all I wanted. That was my only expectation. So I understand like the MFA program as a springboard into careers is a wonderful thing too. But the MFA program in and of itself is just, it's a holy experience. And whether it, leads to a career teaching creative writing afterwards or not, it's just something to do in one's life if one needs to do it. And I feel as if a lot of us need that. We need that space. I needed to do it. I feel the same way about writing. When people ask, why do you write? Is it, simply for publication and things? And I was like, goodness gracious, nobody chases poetry or the lyric essay because they think they're going to parlay it into a lucrative career. We do it because we can't not do it. We need to. There's something in us that compels us to do this. We have things that we have to dislodge and get out onto the page, and then shape it in a way so that it's not dogmatic, but that it's part of a larger artistic, social conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Matthew. And I'm excited that we can offer such a space at the Alma MFA. So thank you for joining us here today to define that space for us. And I'd like to thank the viewers for being with us today and watching this. I am Sophronia Scott. He's Matthew Gavin Frank, and we are with the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing. Find out more about our program at our website, alma-college.org. www.stanford.edu/MFA, and we'll see you again on another Friday. Thank you.
Thanks.